And away we go. It is the Nightcap right here on BearcatJournal.com, brought to you as always by our good friends at Galactic Fried Chicken. Make sure you give them a visit, www.galacticfriedchicken.com. Download the app for Android, iPhone, everything Galactic, or get down to Dayton, Kentucky. Tell them to pump it up, save yourself 15%, and get yourself some of those delicious chicken tenders, fried chicken, mashed potatoes, macaroni and cheese, fried pickles, and of course the Galactic sauce. Or you can get it delivered through the app, and they will bring it right to you pretty much anywhere inside the 275 loop. All right, a little bit of a special episode today here. As you see, Aaron's not here. Aaron's hiding in the background. We got a special guest. We don't do guests a lot on this show, but I reached out to my friend Jeff Goodman, and he was in Cincinnati last week hanging out with Wes Miller, and I wanted to get his thoughts on the Bearcats heading into the 2022-23 season. Jeff, how are we doing, brother?
I'm good, Chad. Thanks for having me. And yeah, we are, I think, under 40 days now from the start of the season. And in full disclosure, I did not see Cincinnati practice. I think I will, hopefully at some point before the start of the season. But I've known Wes forever. And he said he's done a good job with his diet lately. I think he got a little heavy in year one. So he said it was the first alcoholic beverage he had in September with me. So I felt honored.
What he learned was Cincinnati's a pretty good food town.
Yeah, it is.
There's a lot of good spots to eat in Cincinnati. First off, Stadium Insider, Field of 68, which I just want to say, I told you guys last year during the tournament, as good as anything being done in the college basketball space right now are you guys and your nightly shows with Field of 68. It is revolutionizing the way college basketball is being covered, and you guys, you and Rob Doster do a phenomenal job. And I wanted to let all of the people here know when this thing gets rolling nightly, make sure after you watch all the Bearcat Journal content, you check out Field of 68 as well, because it's really cool. Like, that's got to be such a fun, different new thing.
Yeah, the sport needed it because, again, I came from obviously having worked at Fox, CBS, ESPN, and I did a lot of those ESPN halftime shows, and like they're just not real. Nothing. There's no meat to them. There's no meat. There's no ability to really talk about what happened that night. So what we came up with is this nightly show, and the beauty for me is I've known a lot of these coaches. Like I still say there's nobody on the planet that could have gotten Sean and Archie Miller, two of the most media unfriendly coaches ever.
Yep.
To do this show. And, I said to him before they started, and I know you're at Cincy and Sean's at Xavier now, but I said, and obviously Arch was at Dayton before, so you probably don't like the Millers very much. But I said,
Archie was in the mix here.
What's that?
Archie was in the mix here a little bit.
He was.
When the job came open.
Yep. I said, God, people don't know you guys at all. They don't know your personalities. Like, I think it will help both of you. And they were so good at it because all they are basketball junkies. So when they're out, they're watching games every single night and they can break it down. And so they were great. And this year we'll have Chris Mack. He'll be on this year. Lavelle Jordan. So far we're, I think, a perfect 3 for 3, 4 for 4 in terms of everybody who's been on, former coaches getting jobs within a year. So that we got to keep up that track record.
Let's get to Cincinnati and your thoughts. Not a great year one for Wes Miller. It wasn't terrible, but I think they kind of hit a wall towards the end of the season where they just offensively, they couldn't get things done. Did you get a sense from Wes he feels better offensively about this team's ability?
Much better. Much better. He really likes Rob Finney. And that was, to me, a big part. And Rob, part of the issue at Indiana, he was always hurt. Yeah. And Arch, listen, Arch is different in terms of how he runs his offense than Wes. I think Wes is going to give him a lot more freedom. He said it to me the other day. He said, Finney missed the shot, and he kind of looked over, and Wes was like, yeah, that's the first. Keep shooting him. Keep shooting him. Don't worry. I know you worried when you were at Indiana, but I want you to just have the freedom to keep shooting him. I'm not going to yell at you for taking a bad shot. And I think Finney's healthy. I think he'll help. But again, listen, ultimately, it's year 3 and 4 that are going to probably determine Wes Miller and how well he does it, since he didn't inherit much. You know that. It's hard to flip it. You could flip it with transfers like a guy like Finney a little bit, like if you got even a higher level player. But I think it was hard coming off of the Brandon era and where this program was to be able to get those top transfers. Nobody was going to do it unless you had full-blown NIL at that point, right? Full-blown NIL, and they've got it pretty good at Cincy, obviously. They've got it pretty good. But I think in a way, it's almost better to take the natural progression, right? Year 1 to 2.
Sure.
There were no expectations, 1. There's expectations this year, but they're still tempered, right? I mean, if they get in the NCAA tournament, it's a hell of a year this year.
Right.
And then you're in the mix with some dudes now. I mean, come on. If I had told you they'd be in the mix with Isaiah Collier, arguably the #1 player in the country, when Wes got hired a year and change ago, you would have said to me, what?
You're crazy. And not just him. Right. There's multiple 5 stars between 23 and 24. And it feels like the guys that they're recruiting that aren't 5 stars are like top 50, top 75 guys. Yep. And the fan base is getting spoiled to the point almost already where you bring up like they're recruiting the number 63 player and they're like, Collier's #1. Flory Badunga's #3 in 2024. Like, come on. Can you do better, Wes? We need better than top 75.
Yeah, Flory, listen, if somehow, and this is monster. Obviously maybe a
you stood right next to me in South Carolina watching Flory against, was it Atlanta Celtics?
He was ridiculous.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, we were watching him, and it was the first time I had seen him. Was that the first time?
I've been watching him since the spring. I saw him at Adidas in Indianapolis in April.
That's right. I was just blown away. I don't think I've seen somebody like him. I don't want to say ever on the recruiting trail, and I've been doing this for 20 plus years, but in a long time, somebody who plays that hard on the defensive end and has that type of ticker, and also is a skill. Like Amari Stoudemire was a beast, an absolute beast who dunked everything, but his skill level was limited, and that's probably being kind. Flory, for somebody who's only been playing basketball for a limited amount, short period of time,
18 months,
his skill level is insane, and he plays so hard. So if they could get him, and I don't know if we're allowed to talk about the addition,
we'll just call him DA.
All right, that's fine. That's fine. we can call him Mr. X. That's fine. You know, with getting Mr. X on board, it certainly will help give them an inside track to getting Flory. And if you get Collier, that gives you some momentum. That makes it cool for any top player to go to Cincinnati again. And I don't even know, like, when's the last, I mean, again, like Mick didn't bring in any top recruits, right?
Lance.
Oh, but nobody wanted Lance. Nobody wanted him.
I'm just saying that's and Jermaine Lawrence was a colossal
Everybody had
flop.
checked out. Everybody had checked out at Lance Stevenson at that point, right? Like, you weren't fighting anybody, really, for the most part. So when's the last?
I can tell you. I can tell you.
Who?
DeMar Johnson and Kenny Satterfield.
Right. That's crazy. That's crazy. Think about
the last time they swam in those waters. Yeah,
it's insane.
And in 18 months, Wes has got them in the conversation for a lot of these dudes.
Yeah.
And you can speak to it, Jeff, because you've known him for a long time. His energy is infectious, and he's real. There's no phony in Wes Miller at all.
No bullshit. No bullshit to him whatsoever. That's something I've always loved about him since I first met him when he was a player at New Hampton with Richard McCants.
Yeah.
Super smart. Obviously, he had to work hard to get to where he is because his actual abilities, he may not like this, were a little bit limited. All right. A little bit limited athletically.
Yeah.
But where he was able to get to is ridiculous. But it's his work ethic. You know, that's what's, you could just see it when I was talking to him last week. You could just see how invigorated he was at this point. And in this day and age of NIL, you better adapt, right? A lot of these old guys are complaining to me nonstop, but they're adapting because they're looking at their paycheck. And they're like, well, shit, if I want to keep making $3 million a year, I got to figure this thing out.
Right.
But Wes is still young enough. This is going to be what he knows. He's not even having to adapt. Like Wes played, he understands it all. He doesn't have kids, so he can just work 24/7. That's a big advantage. I mean, I've always said this. If I ever got a head coaching job, legitimately, I would hire 3 assistant coaches that none of which have families. I would.
You almost have
and I
to.
know that sounds wrong. I know it sounds wrong, but I know for my sake, even, I look at it. And when I was younger, listen, I wasn't the best dad because I devoted more time to my job than I probably should have. But over the last 6, 7 years, with my daughter getting older, I've had way more balance. And if I'm a head coach, I don't want, listen, no offense, I don't want my assistants to have balance. I want them to be working like Wes is 24/7.
He's the energy is brought back to the program has been unbelievable. And I said this about Luke Fickell. I'm saying it now about Wes Miller. Luke Fickell, Ohio State, arguably the #1 program right there with Alabama in terms of being able to do it over and over and over again and understanding what a program is about. And Wes Miller coming from North Carolina, I think North Carolina is the #1 on that list, being able to do it over. Those two guys, they're both normal. They're both really good, down-to-earth people, but they are also more competitive than anyone you know.
Yeah.
Quietly. And then that comes out in recruiting. It comes out in everyday practice. It comes out in the games. Like, I think it's important to have gone that route again. Like, you kind of, I think, with Wes, unknowingly, I don't think they did it on purpose, but you kind of found the basketball version of Luke Fickell. Although
lucky.
I think Luke could whip him if it came down to it.
They got lucky in some ways. I really, and I'll still say this, if I was Carolina, I would have hired Wes Miller over Hubert Davis. Now, I know right now that looks ridiculous because obviously they went to the national title game. But on March 4th of last year, that was not a ridiculous statement before Carolina went in and beat Duke on Coach K night and then went through the tournament, got that momentum. But I think Wes would have been a hell of a coach at Carolina. And they really lucked out, to me, you guys did, at UC, getting Wes Miller, because now, and if I'm you, I want Hubert Davis to do so well every year.
Every year. Final Four every year. Hubert. Make it impossible for them to go a different direction.
Correct. Right.
Back to this team. Landers Nolley. His first year in the ACC as a freshman. He was all freshman in the ACC, had a really good year at Virginia Tech. His first year at Memphis, I think people forget, he was first team All-American Athletic Conference at Memphis. And then last year at Memphis, because of the Amani and Jalen Duren and he talked about yesterday, and he was a great interview yesterday. He talked about how he let negative energy kind of consume him last year in that situation, and it affected his play. I think he's got a chance to go back to being first team All-American Athletic Conference this year.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of the last chance for him, right? I mean, This is it. You know, he's had kind of a roller coaster career. They didn't really want him at Virginia Tech. They weren't. Right. They weren't.
No, they kind of ran him off.
Yeah. They kind of, and part of it was, I think, he thinks or thought that he was more of a perimeter guy than they thought he was at that point.
Correct.
Right. So
they thought he was a phase 4. He thought he was a 3.
Exactly. So I think a key is going to be how Wes utilizes him this year. But last year was a shit show at Memphis because you have the young guys like Amani, who came in late, by the way. Right. So like Landers Nolley, still, even with Jalen Duren coming in, thought, okay, this is going to be my year. Right. This is going to be my year. Same thing with some of the older guys there. And there was just it was really split last year between that team. And Penny couldn't figure it out till the end. They ended up making the tournament, which was good. But Nolley needed a fresh start. And I think he's talented. We know that. He's talented. He's talented. And you know what they both are? Experienced. And to me, that's the best way right now until you – and even when if you get the Isaiah Colliers, even if you get the Flories in, I would say the best way to build this program is some sort of mix between having some of these older – I want the older culture guys. That's what I want if I'm Wes Miller. Finney. I know they didn't win at a high level, but Finney's a high character kid. You won't hear a bad word about him. So I want some of those with some of these potential one and dones or certainly top 50 players.
I think what a lot of people don't realize, and the Almanac, which is out now, make sure you check that out. It's the new Bible for every college basketball season, right? How do they find that, by the way?
Just go to my Twitter. I tweet about it incessantly, probably way too much. But yeah, it is by far, and I'm not just saying this like because a bunch of young guys that we got together put this thing together. But it's the best place to get all the most accurate information. Like, for instance, we reached out to every single head coach. We got quotes. We talked to every single head coach. So there's as much info on Texas Southern as there is at Duke, and I checked with every staff at the end here of like projected starting lineups and rotations and all of that. So where a lot of these other magazines are going to be outdated.
Yeah.
Like we're not going to be like, we're going to have as accurate info as you can find.
There you go. 1,300 words on every single team, top 25, All-American, 814 pages, Jeff. Insane.
Yeah,
insane. But Cincinnati has eight. They have 4 seniors and 4 super seniors. So get old, stay old. This is an old team that should benefit them as they go through this.
Yeah, it better. I mean,
right?
I think it will. Again, I'm not sure if there's not a ceiling a little bit on this team.
Yeah.
I think you would admit that too. They're not super
Are they as
talented.
good as Houston? No.
But again, if you have good chemistry, and I think that's going to be a key for this team, right?
Yeah.
Is chemistry, role allocation. Those things are going to be key going into the year. And can they make the tournament? Yeah, I think they can make it. I don't think you're going to see them having like a top 25 type year.
Right.
Just get in.
Yeah.
If you get in this year, you get more momentum, and it's all about momentum. If you get momentum winning and recruiting, and you have NIL, and you have a guy like relentless worker like Wes and his staff, man, it's hard to stop that train once it gets going.
The other question, is this conference any good outside of Houston? Are they any good?
It stinks.
It's terrible. Who's good besides Houston?
I honestly, I couldn't even tell you. Like Tulane's getting better, but it's not a good league. And that's the beauty of at least them getting out of it in a year.
Yeah.
It's like you need out of it now because nobody really watches it. Where if you have big time matchups, which you'll have in a year, like the fan base gets excited. They don't want to see playing Tulane and Tulsa and some of these other teams. They want to see, especially if you start getting some dudes.
Right.
And Isaiah Collier probably doesn't want to play. I mean, you're selling him playing against, again, Tulane and Tulsa and East Carolina. Like, good luck.
That made recruiting almost impossible in terms of recruiting at that level. Yeah.
That's what Danny Hurley used to tell me when UConn went from the AAC to the Big East. He was like, literally, he was throwing a party that day because he's like, I can't get high-level recruits in the AAC. Now in the Big East, I can get these dudes.
Right. Finally, what is success for this team in Maui? Because that Maui field is.
Who do they open with? Refresh my memory.
You know who they open with?
I don't.
Arizona.
Oh, they do. They do. Huh. Good time to get Arizona. Good time to get them early.
Then they get the Ohio State winner loser after that.
Oh shit. Yeah. I mean, listen. Honestly, my honest opinion is just don't go home 0-3.
Yeah, win a game.
Win a game. Win a game. Don't. If you win 2, you're throwing a party.
Right.
But if you go 1-2, you're okay with that in Maui because Maui is loaded this year. There's a few PK80, Maui, Atlantis that are really good, and everything else kind of stinks.
Yeah, it's an interesting year to be at Maui because that is a stacked field.
It is.
Really,
are you going?
Really good field. I'm fighting with it. My wife's dealing with some health stuff, so I don't know that.
It's a long trip.
Well, it's a long trip. 1, 2. like $4,000 round trip.
It's super expensive.
$3,500
I did it for my
round trip.
honeymoon. I would like to go back, but again, for me, even it's 2 hours further of a flight.
Right.
It's insane. You just like I'm going to go to Portland for PK80, and that's a haul going 6.5 hours, and then adding another whatever it is 4. It's too much for me.
You know, us independent guys. Yeah, we're with 24/7, but 24/7 doesn't reimburse things.
Right.
So I gotta check with accounting in the other room. Can I spend $7,000?
Hey, that's the boss.
Without you.
Right. That's the boss, isn't it?
Absolutely. All right, man. Much appreciated. It's been a great chat. Thanks for coming on. Make sure you pick up the Almanac. Look, I'm serious about this. Make sure, and the Chris Mack thing, you might have lost some people on this network.
I get it. He'll be good though. He will be good. I promise you. He will rip on me relentlessly. I will rip back at him. We'll have fun, and that's what you said it at the beginning. Field of 68. It's just different because we're gonna have fun for an hour and a quarter. We're gonna entertain. We're gonna screw around, but we're gonna break shit down as well from that night and overall. And there's gonna be no bullshit, as you know with me. There's gonna be absolutely no bullshit. I'm gonna say it the way it is. I'll offend some people. I'll offend some fan bases, some coaches. My alma mater, Arizona, doesn't matter. But listen, Chad, thanks for having me on. Appreciate all you do. You work your ass off. I hope most people that watch this show understand how hard you work. And hopefully we'll see each other soon. I'll be going through the Midwest with my daughter being a freshman in Indiana. I will be in the Midwest often over the next 3.5 years.
Have you done a crosstown shootout?
Yeah, I did it 2 years ago with my daughter. It was
okay. I
want to do it. I think next year might be the best year because, again, like I want to do it this year, but I'm almost like UC's not quite there yet. Next year, especially if they land a couple of these dudes and Xavier, I think Sean. I walked away coming out of meeting with Sean and Wes and saying like, man, basketball in Cincinnati is
about to be a lot of fun.
It's going to be back. Yes.
All right, man. I appreciate it. Stadium Insider, Field of 68, the Almanac. Check it all out. Jeff Goodman, thank you so much for coming on, man. Greatly appreciated.
You got it. Thanks, Chad.
All right, that'll do it. That's the nightcap. We will see you next time right here on BearcatJournal.com.